Hello, welcome everyone. We are joined today by my CTO Spencer, and we're going to be breaking down the OpenAI DevDay announcements. There's been a lot of new stuff that's just hit the market. It's really set off a bombshell in a number of areas. So I'm very excited to have a discussion with Spencer, both for myself to hear his perspective on things and come up to speed from a more technical side of things. Unfortunately, I'm out of the loop on a lot of things on the sort of grassroots and sort of down to earth level of the development operations of Morningside. So being able to get some of the sort of frontline information from Spencer and hear his thoughts on these new updates is going to be very valuable for myself and also for all of you watching as well. So, Spencer, if you'd like to introduce yourself, this is the first time we've had you properly on the channel like this. So, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much. Excited to be here. And yeah, it's an exciting time. My background is I've been working in the NLP space for about 5 years now, developer more generally for about a decade, and obviously the CTO role here at Morningside AI. Been dealing a lot with implementing agents and working with LLMs and implementing them in an enterprise way as well. So yeah, exciting stuff that's been coming out from OpenAI. Excited to talk about it.
Okay, sweet. All right, I think the first place to jump in is the real attention's been on the GPT side of things. So, GPTs, at least from what I can gather, the way they're pitching this is customized versions of ChatGPT for a specific use case, business, person, whatever you want to be, anyway, specific type of use case. So if you want to break down how you've interpreted that from the DevDay conference, and we can sort of have a chat from there.
Yeah, definitely. So GPTs are an incredibly exciting technology that's come out. Mainly, it's going to allow people to start creating these very custom implementations of the GPT technology and lower the barriers to entry for new people to start getting in. So, from that perspective, incredibly interesting. OpenAI is starting to share revenue as well to allow you to monetize these things is going to be an important avenue going forward. With that said, there are some important limitations that are there. It does seem that they're splitting the difference between mass market applicability as well as kind of those fine-tuned custom cases. So I don't think it's as dystopian as a lot of people are kind of thinking that all of these companies are going to be crashing down to the ground. Low value add ones are, and they're going to be replaced by GPTs that can get the job done. But for more custom use cases and larger data sets that you're drawing out of, GPTs will get you a lot of the way there, but they won't get you all the way.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing to break down and sort of addressing the elephant in the room with this release that came out is the complete dismemberment of this entire ecosystem and sort of architecture that we've built up as sort of the open source community as well, and within companies like our own, to address the limitations of context and sort of adding custom knowledge to these systems and conversational assistants. That's just been completely wiped and sort of pulled into the native integrations with OpenAI's GPTs and things like this as well. So what do you think this means for a lot of the companies that were built around these sort of RAG systems and things like that? And what do you think that says moving forward as to what to expect as business owners looking to integrate AI solutions, and what the principles they can sort of carry over from this in terms of how they can continue to position their business moving forward in a way that makes the most durable and also sort of positioned correctly to benefit from this technology?
Yeah, I think a lot of the kind of developments that are coming out of OpenAI are actually indicating a shift in the market. So where the LLMs originally were supposed to be these freewheeling kind of conversational chatbots that were happening, we're starting to see a little bit more of a targeted approach. So using LLMs almost as this semantic layer in between operating with tools that you might have on your own system and operating with the user more generally. So we're going to start seeing those integrations both on SaaS platforms, on e-commerce websites. I know Shopify has their own integration sidekick that they're going to be doing as well. But there's more ingrained functionality that's going to be present in a lot of different web platforms. So with that being said, there was that wipeout that just happened. RAG applications and implementations, there are still some important limitations with agents and with these assistants. So one of them is the size of the files. You're allowed 20 files right now at 512 megabytes. That's not a ton of space for larger applications. And the storage itself is expensive. So having a chatbot with a knowledge base of even 10 gigabytes is going to run you about $60 a month US. So for larger use cases, it does shorten the time to market. So this tool is great for validating a specific idea and getting those implemented. But for larger systems, the RAG concepts are still in play. And we still have to figure out how to best implement those for specific use cases. I think the suggestion, as it's always been, is make sure that you're delivering value. If the only thing that you can provide to your customers is the fact that you have the lowest price or you're competing on price, typically you're not necessarily striking at the heart of what the user's concern is. Usually it's about making people's lives easier. So if you're building something that allows you to do that, you're going to have a durable advantage going forward that I don't think OpenAI is going to be able to take away from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is an important thing to keep in mind, and it's sort of yet to be seen. And we were discussing this earlier about, yes, they might roll these features out, but if the open source community and all these other builders like ourselves and our companies have even had our own struggles with getting it to do the things that we want it to do in certain use cases, how are they going to be able to make something that's blanket and mass market that's going to be able to do all of the things that we need it to do? If they just got some wizardry internally that they've figured out and they've got this perfect system that works flawlessly and essentially solves the problem that we've always been facing as AI development companies and companies that are trying to help other businesses to adopt this technology and integrate it into the systems, which is when you have the behemoth of ChatGPT and the user experience, which is just so flawless. And you compare that to some of the stuff that when you're trying to build on top of it with RAG systems and things like this, it's just the disconnect between the user experience of ChatGPT and then the experience you're able to create with something that is using external knowledge it's been hard to line up in terms of like the chat history and things like this. It's always been a little bit of a disconnect in terms of the experience overall. So the question in my mind is whether they're going to be able to make a ChatGPT experience that is seamlessly integrated with custom knowledge and with other things as well, and all these tools and stuff like that. So what do you think they're going to have in terms of struggles there? And do you think they're going to be able to ship something initially that's going to be as good as people require it to be?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Right now, they're having a struggle between mass market and individual implementations. I think OpenAI is more trying to side towards quality. And that's always a great place to start. You want to make sure that the product that you're shipping is high quality and that people can get consistent results out of it. They've opened up a lot of that functionality. So GPT-4V, as well as the code interpreter and the different tools that are there, that would have taken months for internal teams to be able to develop on their own. Making those available is a huge step to increasing adoption across the ecosystem that we have here. But also kind of internal in that as well is there is still a lot of unsolved questions about RAG, how to do it properly at scale, and even code execution and things like this. Is that there's difficulties that are there. There's very likely a strong correlation between the fact that OpenAI has struggles with it and their pricing strategy. Is they're very much encouraging more small scale implementations because they know that they can't particularly tackle that one yet. So yeah, likely over time they'll continue to implement those things, but they're going to be kind of held back by the fact that they do still need to satisfy that mass market.
Mm-hmm. So you think they're limiting they're making it so expensive on the sort of storing and using data in the vector databases that they provide and within those systems, that you're saying that they are making that expensive as sort of a discouragement to people actually using those for large amounts of data. And they already capped the amount of documents and data you can put in there, right? So that you're saying that that's kind of highlighting that they too have struggles with the systems and they're having to sort of put guardrails on the scope of the functionality that they can provide with their knowledge component now, because they may be having the same issues that everyone else in the market struggled with.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. Like even from a technical perspective on my end, is that you usually do use pricing in order to guide user behavior and put them into specific veins that you want them to use your product in. That seems to be the general consensus among a lot of the developers that I've seen, is that they're purposefully curtailing a lot of the functionality there to make sure that it's within the bounds where they feel comfortable with the outputs that it's generating.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the different ingredients. This is something that I'm kind of working on myself in terms of how do you simply explain this GPT's opportunity and how it's going to work moving forward. And I'm seeing it as kind of like a cauldron where you have different ingredients that you can put in. At this point, they've enabled us to put in a knowledge component, which is a new and very helpful thing for us that we've just discussed. You have the instructions or the prompting. I'm not sure what the term they use specifically, but it is basically just prompting and instructions that you provide it. And you also have the actions. Now, we have seen actions through things like ChatGPT plugins, which we all thought was going to be sort of the next big thing. But I think the rollout and execution on that wasn't sort of spot on. And I think this is a new version of seeing ChatGPT plugins and the functionality that promise, but in a way that's much more well packaged and allows you to sort of seal it in an environment that makes sense and allows you to sort of have the right ingredients into the cauldron at the right time. So what do you think in terms of the use cases and how these are going to be used within businesses? I know we've discussed that there's sort of internal uses, there's external uses that are client-facing, internal ones that are going to help to empower the team to do more. And there's all sorts of questions about how are you going to have 3 internal GPTs to manage different departments? Are they going to be one on the customer-facing side, etc.? So how do you see the actual adoption of this kind of technology within businesses, both on the customer-facing side and also internally, as many businesses are looking to do right now?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, once again, leaning into that kind of smaller scale application of these, for a smaller organization, 1 to 5 employees, maybe even 1 to 10, you're likely just going to have one implementation that maybe handles different functionalities, apps. I know will probably be a big one there. In a more limited scope of functionality, even when we look at the tools, we are limited to 128 tools total. So as you get to a larger enterprise solution, you're probably going to want to be breaking these down by business unit. So having one specifically for the finance department, having one specifically for the C-suite, et cetera, will be the dynamic that's going out there. And I think that's, is an exciting thing, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity to build those and multiple through an organization that are more tailored and fine-tuned towards a specific user experience.
Now, a big question sort of off the back of that is, yes, there's going to be functionality that we can connect all these different actions to. Or we have as ChatGPT plugins allowed us to connect APIs and different functions that we wanted to do, and also function calling through the APIs as we've been using heavily at Morningside. In terms of the line now, it sort of puts in jeopardy a lot of the businesses that have popped up around it, around the sort of ecosystem of helping businesses adopt AI and particularly GPT technologies. Where is the opportunity for custom solutions? Where is the value that development companies like ourselves and others who are looking to facilitate the adoption of this technology? Where is the major value that we can provide to businesses in adopting this? Because it seems with things like Zapier suddenly being able to do all of these 6,700 different applications that Zapier enables through the platform, being available through GPTs now, and just sort of a pick and mix, choose which ones you want and group those into a GPT. Where are the key sort of value differentiators for people to be able to build custom solutions and help businesses to create more custom integrations of this technology outside of just what comes out of the box with GPTs?
Yeah, I think the big one is we're going to be seeing a lot of development within the APIs here. I always have found better results when you keep the instruction set very specific for the LLM to make sure that you're getting kind of this guided output that's going on as well. So with a lot of APIs that already exist, and those are going to be the basis for tools, they're general by default to try and make sure that the most amount of people can integrate with them and find value. Because of that, you're going to see a lot of API developers start to specialize and refine the integrations with them and providing agent-specific integrations that are there. One of the thoughts that kind of came to mind is you'll start to see almost this SEO-like market pop up around agentic tooling, where you're trying to make sure that your tool set and the tools that you're providing by API are going to have the highest probability of success. So I expect over the next 6 months, we'll see a fair amount of companies springing up, enabling people to be able to do that and measure the results thereof. And that entire dynamic of meeting between agents and functionality will continue to evolve.
Yeah, I think we were talking earlier about how the functionality of custom coded solutions and sort of the value that you can provide beyond just these very consumer friendly mass market appeal products is how you can actually say, if you have a front end on your website and you're allowing people to interact with a GPT via your website, It's the ability for that to then call the correct functions in order to update the web page and do sort of larger scale functions and changes to the environment. That something like Zapier is simply not able to do. So could you go into how you see potentially these getting access to changing websites in real time and being a much more integrated experience for users in terms of how it can affect the experience of a website or a SaaS platform?
Yeah, definitely. The one example I kind of have of this is search. Search for a lot of companies is a very difficult thing to try and integrate properly, especially once you get into things like advanced search. So, when we look at websites generally, they're communication tools. So, having a natural language interface, a way for a person who's never used your website before to jump on and immediately be able to see value out of it by just having a conversation with a chatbot that specifically has access to the APIs that power your site, will allow them to, if you're an e-commerce store, go in and say, hey, I'm looking for a red sweater, immediately populate the search for that red sweater, any filters that you may have, and then not only redirect you towards that screen, but continue that conversation in a persistent state over to the side and maybe some kind of modal. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot of those natural language integrations and that kind of workflow pop up a lot more, where it's an assistive technology helping you kind of bridge that learning curve of new features and in new websites.
Yeah, and so for businesses who are looking to stay on the front foot and start adopting this stuff, we've talked about how this future that OpenAI has really just laid out with this announcement in terms of where they're looking at going. I think you said they fired the first shot here, and they've really shown their hand in a number of ways by saying, okay, look, this is the direction that we're going towards. And up until this point, we haven't had that much clarity in terms of what to expect from the next, I'd say, 12 months from the market. And that seems like a long time in AI land, but I think we do have a good enough shot of foreseeing how we're going to progress towards the next milestone, which, based off what they were talking about in the conference, is that they want to be able to allow these agents to begin to work more autonomously and start to do some sort of behind the scenes thinking, as you've seen with things like Auto GPT, where it's able to sort of rattle off ideas and problem solving and try to brainstorm around and then also connect to other agents. So with us sort of slowly progressing down this pathway towards this sort of autonomous agent future, how do you think businesses should best be able to prepare themselves to be stepping in the right direction and being sort of on the front foot so that they can make the most of this when it comes around? And I think with any of these sort of shakeups of technology and we get a new big sort of force comes into the area, it's able to give opportunity for businesses to rise up through the ranks that didn't necessarily have a chance over the sort of established leaders before. So how do you think the businesses should be approaching this moving forward?
Yeah, I think that's kind of exactly it. OpenAI fired the first shot. They defined what the market is going to look like, and it's gone generally along the lines that we've seen in the development of these products for a while. You'll have your agent, which is doing the executive function of breaking down tasks and executing them. You'll have your LLMs, which GPT-4. You'll have your memory and your tooling. And that has been established. Semantic kernel is the other one. LangChain has similar kinds of ideas there. So OpenAI coming out and setting the benchmark as the industry leader right now is going to make sure that any subsequent developments are along those lines. One of the key things I think all business leaders can probably start looking towards is ensuring a modular future. So when we're developing these things as a technology, making sure that you have modular components that are based around this structure that you can start swapping in and out. One of the big kind of keys for the next little bit will be almost this multimodal, multi-model kind of paradigm. So certain providers will be better at providing different things, and you'll want to be able to take advantage of that. So building your core structure, starting to implement early maybe stabs at memory and tooling, just to be able to set yourself up that you can swap out better components and things as they come along. Liam, to the point that you were saying in there as well, 12 months feels like forever just because of the pace of everything that's going on. Modularity is going to save a lot of executives' jobs at this point to make sure that they're not reinventing the wheel every single time somebody releases a new product.
Yeah, I think it is important to learn from what we've just seen and look at not only for those who are looking to start businesses in the AI space that are software based, and they're looking to create either consumer or business facing product. And for businesses who are looking to adopt the stuff as well, when you run into a limitation of these models, and it might sound sort of counterintuitive for like me to be saying this as owner of a development company, but when you run into these limitations of the models, we've learned from this sort of episode with OpenAI that pushing too far beyond what they sort of allow us to do fairly easily, if you're going too many steps ahead, while that is good to push the space forward for businesses, it may not be the most for research companies or for people who are looking to really push the envelope and do sort of open source projects, sure. But if you are a business and you're looking to do this as efficiently as possible, driving ROI for the business in a way that's sensible and responsible, I think not trying to push too far beyond the envelope in terms of what's available for these models right now. We saw with all of these really complex memory systems and RAG systems and things like this, we really took it quite far. And I think as we've seen with this big jump, OpenAI has wiped out a lot of the software companies that popped up to facilitate that. But they still may find a place now. I think a lot of them are going to have to pivot heavily. They wiped out a lot there. And for the businesses who had already gone and invested $50, $100, $150,000 into systems that relied on these sort of around-the-bout and hacky ways of doing things, that can be in many ways a bad use of money when a new thing comes out a couple months later. So I think it's being aware and pushing yourself up to the point where you can get the functionality and do as much as you can, maybe a little bit beyond with what they have currently, so that you're on the front foot, but not necessarily overcommitting and going too far beyond that envelope. Would you agree with me there, or would you have a different take?
No, I absolutely agree. I think, with any new technology, especially on the frontier as we are right now, that lean methodology is essential. Making sure that you're deriving the right type of value. As long as you're seeing value along the chain as you're developing things, the investments that you make on it are incredibly low risk. The more you kind of amp up that risk profile by going way beyond the pale, the more you're kind of leaving yourself out to dry a little bit as more kind of consistent, solidified technology becomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the cool things also is that some of the companies that we've worked with already, the solutions that we've built for them, we're able to sort of circle back and provide updates that's going to simplify the processes down a lot more and say, hey, look, we can bolt on this new stuff and upgrade it in a major way that's going to reduce costs. It's going to make the system far more efficient. So what are your thoughts in terms of companies who already have things set up, what opportunities they have to really freshen up their systems and implement this latest stuff, particularly with things like GPT Vision and the newer models that have just come out?
Yeah, I always think of a kind of a bolt-on method. So if you start off with this kind of agentic paradigm that's going on there, as you're adding functionality, start off with a knowledge base, just something conversational and low risk to get people up to speed, and then start bolting in different tools. So maybe sending off an email to somebody, or even your calendar scheduling can usually be devolved into some kind of agent tooling. That kind of process, that iterative process of adding value sequentially over time, I think is the best way to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a big opportunity both on the sort of agency side and AI agency side of things, which I talk about a lot and have students over on my YouTube channel and my communities. I think there's a big opportunity there for people who are looking to facilitate that adoption and continue to do what we've always said we do, which is facilitate the adoption of new tech, help businesses, and we can also make money in the process. For them to continue to allow businesses to push up on adopting this new technologies and making sure they're on the front foot is going to be really key moving forward. And as we've seen, we've always sort of said it as we're talking to clients on our meetings. It's like you'd rather be in a position, sort of going back to what I said before about not pushing too far past the envelope. It's important to also push up to the envelope in the first place and have at least something in the chamber and something cooking already. Because when these new updates come out, you don't want to be on square one. You want to be already a couple steps down the road, so that you don't have to invest huge amounts of resources and you're not scrambling when other people are already making small steps. So I think getting this infrastructure laid out, and as you said, taking sort of chunks at a time, so you have a key part of your business. It's quite clear at the moment that the future is definitely going to be quite modular. It's all going to be based around tooling and specific parts of the business, functions of the business being able to be operated programmatically, either by a natural language interface with a human that can sort of trigger those, or eventually in sort of the next year or so with OpenAI releasing the autonomous side of things, being able to do things completely autonomously in the background. So I think it is important for businesses to also be sort of right in that sweet spot of staying up to date, but not pushing too far past it that you're potentially overextending or reaching past the functionality that's potentially going to be covered off with the next update from any one of these big companies. So is there anything else on that, Spence, that you thought might benefit our audience of business owners and also people who are looking to help business owners to facilitate this technology adoption?
I think generally, making sure that you have the framework in place is going to be the big first step if you haven't already. But understanding what agentic workflows look like it will help you a lot in the future. Data engineering is likely going to see a lot of retooling and reconfiguring as this entire process starts rolling out. So I'm very interested to kind of see how that portion of it starts to develop over time.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I was going to stop the bus, but I think that's a very important thing to talk about is with this GPT Marketplace rolling out, it's going to, as we saw with all of these wrapper products that got put around the GPT APIs, this was just an absolute, I mean, there's like thousands of new AI tools on these search engines every couple of weeks, So we saw this massive saturation of people doing minor modifications around the ChatGPT API and things like this. And I think with this GPT Marketplace, we're going to see that exact same thing. I'm fairly certain that we're going to see a massive push of all of these people jumping into it and diving in and being able to make a lot of sort of very basic GPTs. They're using public sets of data that they're pulling in sort of basic publicly available APIs that they can use as functions, things like this. So a lot of this new stuff that's going to flood the market will do cool things for sure, but it will all be eventually commoditized and saturated because everyone can get access to that kind of data. And I think an interesting thing to point out is that businesses have always known that they've always been told that data is valuable, right? And we've always heard that like your data is your most valuable thing, this. But we are coming into, I'm not sure if it was you or someone else I was talking to a while ago, a couple of months ago, must have been. And it's like, this is the first time, or it might have been on a podcast, someone was saying that this is the first time where businesses go, okay, well, like my data actually is valuable. And sites like Quora, who they thought, we've got all this question answer data, but now they're like, they're all stopping the scraping. This is our data. There's no way you're going to be scraping our information. Suddenly there's this data war going on that's even more intense than it ever was. Because these companies now, if you are creating these GPTs, if you are creating these custom models, the data that you have as a business is your only real moat and the proprietary information and tech that you can have to create these valuable things. So I think it's going to be a big opportunity that we may well jump into at Morningside, getting into helping businesses to leverage their proprietary data or internal functions or information, anything that they have that's sort of secret to their business, and make it accessible to the world or other businesses. You can look at things like Apple's health data or however they're going to use that. But that kind of information is going to be hugely valuable for them to be able to monetize it potentially or sell that solution, that AI who's expert in that domain to consumers or to other businesses. So what do you think with your data background as well, how you see that kind of race playing out?
Yeah, I think there was a company that was acquired by NASDAQ a few years back called Quondal. So what Quondal did originally was kind of standardize the implementation of retrieving data, financial data from different markets. And as they grew and evolved, they started getting into non-conventional data sets. So this could be
That sounds like X-rated or something, non-conventional data sets.
Well, I mean, things such as, photographing Walmart parking lots to see how busy they are, and all of these different kind of non-conventional or unconventional data sets became a lot more valuable. So on the internet, there's massive amounts of data that's out there. The one that I kind of look at is Google releases popular times for restaurants and all of these. So as you're having a conversation with one of these bots, maybe for OpenTable of booking yourself a reservation at a restaurant, being able to reference and include that data, difficult to get. Obviously, there's protections that are around it. Not advising it because I believe it goes against the TOS of Google itself. But that being said, is that there's an interesting opportunity for providing those unconventional data sets in order to reinforce the actions and inform the actions of these agents as well. So I think we're going to see a large push by a lot of developers to make that difficult to access and refined information more available to users.
Yeah, totally. I think that's it's been helpful for you to point that out for me as an opportunity, because I think it was obvious that there's two real opportunities here. One for the business owner who's already running a business and they want to be able to implement this stuff to benefit their business, both on the sort of customer experience side and sales, but also internally to improve operations and increase sort of transparency of data and things like this. On the other side of that, there's the agency opportunity where you help businesses to do that. So you're like the GPT Agency is kind of what I'm thinking. I'm going to put a name on it as like a GPT agency that's focused on creating the GPTs for a business. Taking that, and that's an entire opportunity on its own to make money. But I think and there's also the opportunity of making GPTs yourself and putting them on the marketplace and trying to get some of that rev share. And then there's the other one that you just mentioned, which is similar to that, as in people are going to be able to make all these different GPTs, put them on the market, they're going to become saturated very quickly. But those ones that you mentioned that are sort of those unconventional data sets, I think will be the next one that people will have to sort of, the next barrier that people will hit. They're going to rapidly post a whole bunch of these different GPTs. They might make a bit of money here and there. There's always these sort of Goldilocks periods and these new sort of tech rollouts. I mean, I'm talking like I'm 40 years old here. This is what I'm able to glean from my looking and research of the past history of the internet, things like that. So by no means am I acting like I'm some sage or some 40-year-old wizard here. Spencer, you're definitely the wiser man in the room here, but correct me if I'm wrong, that's what I'm saying. But it's this, with these technological trends, there's always this sort of pop up of a huge opportunity in this phase where people can make a lot of money, and it sort of continually sort of fades out and becomes regulated and standardizes as more time goes on. So I think we're going to see a lot of people jump in and make those commoditized things that are just the same as the GPT wrappers that we've seen recently. They're going to have their day, and then there's going to be that other opportunity where the more skilled people, the developers who want to go out there and really start mining these other opportunities to find those unconventional data sets and build GPTs around it, put it on the marketplace, also selling that data to businesses and things like that. So yeah, it's very exciting times, and I'm super excited to see how well they roll this thing out. Really, that's the kicker here. I think there's a lot of excitement and a lot of good energy floating around the space right now. A bit of fear, I assume, on the software side of things for some of these guys who've overcommitted, and I think there's a lesson there with this emerging tech to not overcommit. But if you want to touch on that, Spencer, a little bit about sort of strategic placements of your capital and of your time in this particularly tumultuous period of new technological development.
Yeah, I think it's kind of two-sided. So first is, yes, not overcommitting yourself in terms of the risk profile of the projects that you're taking on, and doing that lean methodology is, release, refine, and experiment to make sure that you're actually delivering value. And value can be for your end consumer, or it can be for your internal teams that are using a specific tool. I also think that when we have a big announcement, there was a ton that was listed in that conference, not to overreact on it as well, to make sure that we're qualitatively evaluating. OpenAI has every incentive to make you feel like every implementation you're ever going to do is completely out of date now, and you've got to go back to the drawing board, and scare you to say that they can do it better than you can. And respectfully, there's a lot of cases in which that's true. But understanding where the opportunities actually lie, digesting the information to be able to make informed decisions as to the structure of your business is important too. So usually for any kind of development project that I usually have in long-term road mapping is making sure that rather than specific implementations, you're focusing on the results. What are you trying to affect in your business, and how do you use technology to get there? And the technology is always going to change over time. Realistically, what you're trying to make sure is that you're reducing the time to development for specific implementations if you're managing an engineering team, trying to increase your revenue, whether or not that's a specific implementation of a LLM or an agent, is somewhat irrelevant to the fact of how do I just increase that number. And yeah, once again, the actions that you take in between here and there are going to shift over time.
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be a lot of hard conversations going on right now. And for a lot of these software guys who got in, I think we've dodged a bullet in many ways on our side of things, not getting into a SaaS play too early on here. And I think if you are sitting here listening to this and you didn't make the sort of jump into making some sort of consumer-facing application off the back of these, like wrapping around these APIs, then you are the first round survivor, really, in many ways. And you have an opportunity now to learn from the mistakes of that first batch of AI entrepreneur guys who got inside of the SaaS business, to look at the sort of mistakes they made and be able to make a smarter play moving forward in terms of how you position your business and being aware of these big giants that can really just wipe you out overnight. in many ways. Not to be sort of over alarmist, as you said. I think it is proof is going to be in the pudding as to how high quality these responses are, and if they're able to deliver on what they say. But I think it is an exciting time for people to be getting into these SaaS space as well. We're definitely looking at that moving forward, but being very, very cautious of how much these big players can really move the market.
Yeah, just to quickly add on to that one as well, the one thing that I'm kind of looking at coming out of this is the fact that the marketplace is a great place to experiment now. If you have an idea of something that you want to do, having that distribution through OpenAI to be able to validate an idea in a very low investment way, low cost way, I think that's a game changer. So yeah, building on there originally to validate your idea in a low cost way before moving to maybe a more custom solution, a great way to mitigate your risk.
Yeah, it's like Amazon or Fiverr or anything, like a marketplace that just gives you free eyeballs on your ideas and gives you a much higher chance of being discovered as being a good idea, and a much faster route to validation than having to run some sort of marketing campaign to get information. I feel like the tricky part is then if you were to get picked, like it picks up and you get a lot of success and a lot of traction, then you just sort of strapped into that marketplace and you're stuck with them. How do you actually sort of expand out on that and get to a point where you can make a proper business out of it rather than just be a OpenAI little halfling that they monitor and then they eat you up eventually and steal your functionality and build it into the main product? So I think a lot of people are getting up in arms about that because we see the play. We see the play right in front of us. They've just done it. They've literally done it in front of our eyes. And then they've gone, hey, but like, look over here. If you go and build on our platform and show us all the cool things, the people that get the most sort of downloads and volume of usage, then you're going to put some rev share. But we're probably just going to take that and put it onto our product eventually. So what do you think on that and sort of the ethics behind what they're doing there?
Well, it reminds me a lot of the Amazon Marketplace, as I believe they did the exact same tactic. Point.
So I mean, the volume, and then they just eat the product up and start selling it on Amazon.
So there's a portion of that. I think there's also a fair bit of consideration as well for the tools that you're building, making sure that you're maybe building something a little bit more proprietary than just a straight integration of an API from some kind of crypto site or whatever that may be for your integration. But making sure that you do have some kind of proprietary technology. OpenAI is not going to be the only marketplace that comes out. There's going to be other ones that come out. I know LangChain is working on their own. AWS has their version, and I would be surprised if nothing else, if Google doesn't come out with the same. So making sure that you can move between these things, and that you do have that ownership of the underlying data, as we've talked about earlier as well. That you've got something unique that is uncopyable by other people. Easier said than done, but I guess that's the problem with entrepreneurship, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. Well, it's like exciting times. I think this is a stressful but exciting time to be in the space, and I think there's a lot of opportunity. Also, the closer you look, it seems like it's a bigger opportunity than a threat in many ways. So I should probably wrap it up there. I think we've gone for a bit longer than we're supposed to, but that's what happens when you're talking about interesting stuff, right? So thank you for watching. It's been a cool introduction of Spencer here on the second channel. Thank you for tuning in. I hope it's been a bit of an eye-opener, us sharing sort of an open discussion here, talking back and forth about how we think this is going to impact not only the AI automation agency space, but also the sort of business space at large, and how integrating AI into businesses can be a little bit more challenging or difficult depending on how these things move. So if you guys want to get in touch with us, work with us on some of your queries or consulting or anything related to AI development services, of course, my company, Morningside AI, and the wonderful Spencer here will be able to sort you out. So we'll have a link to our company down in the description below. Also, if you want to check out my main channel for anything related to AI business, if you're looking to start up your own, that's going to be linked down there below also. So appreciate if you guys drop us a comment if you like this kind of format, if you want any sort of feedback. Maybe I'm mumbling. People like to talk about that all the time. It's just my accent, guys. I apologize. But if you want to say thank you to Spencer as well, if you could leave a comment down there, let him know so I can get him back on here and convince him to come on here more regularly. So aside from that, Spencer, if you have anything to say.
Oh, that's all. Thank you so much for having me on here. It's been great. Always love talking about this stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll be tuning in probably the next couple of days, just keeping these coming. So thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you next one.